Hello, my name is Ted Lederer, and you're watching another episode of It's All About Art. And today we're at the studio of Bruce Pashak in Vancouver. Bruce, thank you so much for inviting us here today.
You're more than welcome.
I love your studio. Now, you've told me before that this is the cleaned up version.
This is a cleaned up version, yes. It's normally an absolute bomb site, but for you, I cleaned it up today.
We appreciate that.
Yes.
Bruce, when I look around, the first thing that I see is figurative.
All right.
Do you think of yourself as a figurative painter?
In a way I am. Figures do appear a lot in my works. When I was in graduate school, I actually studied anatomy with medical students. I was allowed to go over, because I was a figurative artist in my graduate program, I was allowed to go over and study cadavers. And so I was there with the white coat on and with all the other medical students, and we're all looking at these dead bodies. And the first day we were there, they had these buckets around us, similar to the garbage cans that are in here, and the lids on them, and all the medical students are saying, well, what are they? They're worried. And I said, well, hey, I'm in art. It doesn't matter to me. I'm curious. And I opened it up, and inside these buckets, one was filled with all hands, the other one was all feet. And I figured, okay, so you're very close to, heaving, not looking at this, but it was fabulous. So I basically had a Da Vincian-like experience. I was able to pierce through the body, hold them, go through, see all the tendons and the bones and all intact. And so I learned a lot about human anatomy. So the body's become really important in my work. Right. And I can rely on that a lot when it comes down to a kind of technique, a drawing technique that I use. Very inside, outside.
So now I also see a lot of graffiti in this work.
Right. Graffiti is a current vernacular for sure. I mean, there's this whole idea of what's happening outside of the gallery has become something that's very important in the art world. Like how do images that are in popular culture relate to images that are for consumption? And so it's a really interesting thing that's going on as far as graffiti art, because now it's being determined as art. So now it's starting to cross into the art world. You get artists like Banksy, for example, right, who've turned it into a really high-end commercial commodity. So what at one time was basically an establishment has now been co-opted by popular culture as to becoming commodified. I'm really interested in that. I'm really interested in how we as a culture adapt to certain forces that are going on around us. And graffiti art was a kind of renegade force. It was meant to kind of attack, but now it's become a part of. It's become a kind of vogue. So I like that, and what I've done is I've worked with street artists to work onto my canvases, and under the conditions that I would work back into what they've done on my canvas, so it becomes my work again. And in essence, what they were doing to my work made a surface upon which I put my images. So therefore, I'm bringing the work from the street onto my canvases into the gallery.
Right. So you've worked over the pieces, and I see in your work some very iconic Bruce Pashak.
Right.
You're using paint right out of the tubes and these brilliant colors. Yes. Clearly, this gorgeous sense of the anatomy is there, and text. I've seen text in your work for years.
I see myself, and this is with all honesty, I see myself as a writer that paints. I've always admired the ability to use the written word as a means of communication. Many years ago I co-opted that and put it into my work because I like the way text gives you a certain kind of feel for the work. I like the idea that writing becomes something that I can use as a means of further communicating a kind of idea that I want to get across.
But it's interesting, your writing, it's in bits and pieces. I mean, it's not like it's always all that legible.
It's that wonderful play in between when is writing image and when is it writing. So I happen to just like the aesthetics of my writing, my handwriting too. So I really carefully use that as a means of drawing, as a means of image too. But of course, they are words, and words carry many kinds of codes with them. So I'm very careful with the kind of text I use. It's not about completely clarifying, it's about enhancing. So sometimes the text can take the image to another place, but not necessarily completely linked to the image. So there can be multiple levels.
There's a couple of other things that I've always noticed about your art, and one is the quality of drawing. So drawing, even though they're paintings, drawing is very present.
Drawing for me is just something that represents a kind of rawness, there's a soulness to it, that there's a kind of allowable freedom in the process of drawing. So even when I'm painting, even though some of my painting parts of my images are quite detailed and elaborate, there's still a sense of, hopefully, a kind of spontaneity that comes out of the drawing process. So drawing for me has a kind of openness. In other words, an image can change for me daily. I like that. I like the idea that it has a kind of power.
Your sense of color, historically through your work, it goes everything from the very calm and sedate to outrageously and outlandish color.
My use of color is so intuitive that it's almost ineffable. It's almost beyond the point of me being able to categorize it, because I respond to colors according to each piece, and sometimes it might even be a mood change. I want something that's absolutely fluorescent and bright, and this will give this kind of impact. Other times I want it really subdued. But my use of color is a little bit like my image. They're very closely related in a sense that there's a dichotomy that happens within them. There's brightness and muteness. There's value in relationship to non-value. There's all the way from fluorescent into the most muted colors. And so color for me becomes something that I can play with in order to give a certain kind of impact.
Well, your piece Monarchy, with the word monarchy, that's a wonderful example of that, isn't it?
Monarchy is a very good example to use, because you'll see that split right down the middle. You'll see that split to this very sensuous, bright, and what I did is I squeezed all the paint out of the tubes. I spent hundreds of dollars of paint just squeezing all the tubes out, so you've got this absolute mosaic of dripping thick paint that forms a kind of pattern of color, and it's very sensual. And then in the other side I have a bombed image, but it's also a literal image. You have this black woman right up close, right in your face, so you get this wonderful feeling of the viscous sense, almost that need to go feel and touch and have this color response. And then you have the image that allows a kind of code for you to, so it becomes something that's cerebral.
Bruce, is there anything else that you'd like to talk to the viewers, myself, about your work or about the upcoming exhibition that you think that maybe we haven't covered?
There's some really interesting dialogues that are there, and I'm hoping that the viewers and the buyers that come to the gallery will enjoy that dialogue, will not be afraid to enter into it, ask the tough questions, like why, how do you work with another artist and not claim that artist has part of the work, or is the work all yours? What about the gallery itself? If it's street art, then, and it's now being commodified into marketing, is it now street art anymore? I mean, the tough questions are there to be asked, but that's the beauty of art. They open up what I call, we get safe within certain kind of constructs. It's nice if we can open up the dialogues beyond that and not be afraid of it, because there's some really interesting places we can go, and that's what I'm hoping happens with the show.
Bruce, thank you. It's been fabulous.
Thanks.
Real pleasure.
Thanks.
My name is Ted Lederer, and you've been watching another episode of It's All About Art. We've been in conversation with Bruce Pashak, and we invite you to tune in for next time. Bye for now.
Have a good day.